back, guys, to my playthrough of Pokemon Red, where I talk about Airsoft. Today, I want to talk about pistols. I know a lot of kids kind of get influenced by TV and video games, and they want to do a specific loadout, or they think stuff's just cool. Let me check this out. Yeah, I should go to the Pokemon Center. I'll first talk about some of the models that are popular, and then I'll talk about a few discussion points, just for little tips. First things first. I need to stop saying that. Anyway, basically the number one pistols are the 1911, the M9, and the Glock. If you can even get a hold of a Glock now. First 1911, very popular pistol. It's very well liked in the, how would I put it, the self-defense world. A lot of people like using them. They come in 9mm and 45 in different variants, but in the airsoft world, there's a few companies that make them. WE has 1911. Let's see. Elite Force has their 1911. KWA has their 1911. And Tokyo Marui has theirs, which are normally referred to as high kappas, the 4.3 and the 5.1. They're just two different generations. They do have their own individual parts that they're compatible with, so you need to make sure you get those specific parts for upgrades if you ever got upgrades. 1911s do come in both green gas and CO2. And they do come in single and double stacks. Single stack is typically 15 plus 1 in the chamber for a total of 16. They do come in double stack, which I have a double stack 1911. It has 26 rounds, I believe. And then there's also extended mags. You can get for them as well. 1911 is pretty much the easiest gun to disassemble and clean and do regular maintenance on. You gotta remember to do maintenance on your gas pistols and rifles if you ever got one. One bit of advice for a 1911 is that they come with two different types of mags. One's with the traditional flat base plate and one with the extended base plate. From my personal experience, get the extended base plate. Typically, those standard flat base plates that are supposed to replicate the real steel ones, they're never made out of a hard enough metal. They should be made out of steel. I don't know why. It's probably a cost saver. But I've always had them get bent to crap and just ruined. So that's my one tip for that. Also, I vouch for if you go WE, go for their NG3 setup. Don't do the other setups that they have for their WE 1911s. They're not as efficient, and the parts wear out too quick. Even you pay for what you get for, just the same as what we've always said on the podcast, as I've said on this little gaming thing. But anyways, go for the Elite Force. Fun note with Elite Force though, if you get a KWC pistol, KJW, it is the same thing. Literally, same internals, just different externals with different licensing. So, if you get an Elite Force gun, you can use KJW mags in them. That's why I like them, mainly because you can get extra mags easily, and they're not very expensive. If you do want to go for a KWA, go right ahead. They're very good pistols. I don't usually hear any complaints out of the people who buy them outside of a little pricey, but if you're paying for what you get for, you're paying for the best one. Next up, I'm going to say the M9. That's the standard infantry for the Army, I believe, right now, is the M9 as their pistol. In the real world, most people hate the M9 because mechanically it is flawed. It doesn't eject well, and the teardown's kind of a pain, and just, if you ever hear somebody in talk real steel, they'll say they hate the M9. Now, I have a gas blowback M9 from WE, still their NG3 line, and I love the thing to death. It is a double stack mag. It's green gas. You can also get CO2 mags for them. And you can also get the M93R variant, but I'd advise against it because typically those do have mechanical parts that will wear and tear to the point where you won't find replacement parts, and the gun then will just be in, if you get it cheap, $80 paperweight. But I digress. KWA also makes one, and I can't remember what the third one is. I'll probably leave a link in the description for all these pistols that I'm talking about. Or not, who knows. But the next is Glock. In Airsoft, there's been the issues with Glock where Glock does not like their weapon being replicated. So anytime Glocks have been made in Airsoft, they've been taken down quickly. If you were lucky enough, like me, there was WE was making Glocks available in they had the 17, the 18, I think the 19, and I think a 34, not sure. They are always a polymer slide with, a polymer lower and a metal slide. So the weight's lighter. It reduces weight. Wow, I can't talk. Oh, nice, next level. It reduces the weight. And the mags are double stack again. Very easy to do maintenance on. I believe you can get CO2 mags for them, but because, like I said, they got shut down, there's less and less of the parts sitting around. Less and less of the mags sitting around. You can still get Glock parts. The only trick with it is WE's design is slightly different from other designs for Glocks. That's typically the way that manufacturers get around them, is they use a slightly different design. Like, for example, the Echo 1 Timberwolves, they look like a Glock, they fit in Glock holsters, but mechanically they are a different design, therefore they were able to keep their pistol. Unlike WE, who was going tried and true for the way that the trigger engaged with the hammer. So if you want a simple Glock to get a hold of, go for an Echo 1 Timberwolf. There's a lot of great things, a lot of good videos on maintenance for them. And again, with those Glock 18s, I believe the KWA ACPs? I could be mistaken on that, but the ACP is also a Glock style pistol. Plenty of them out there. Work very well with CO2. And they do make full auto ones. Again, full auto, you run the risk of those mechanical parts wearing out, so be careful. So those are the three simple ones that you can get into, and then I'll talk about a few of the other ones. I also own a Desert Eagle made by KWC, so it has the licensing by the actual Israeli company who created the Desert Eagle. The pistol has great recoil, has single and full auto, and it's heavier than hell. It's a lot of fun to shoot, but it is not a pistol that you can just pick up and have as a secondary very easily. Very few, there's only the Tornado holster, which actually opens up the end of it, you could use. Other than that, you'd have to go to somebody and get a custom Kydex holster made, which people will do, but that's extra money, so I would never advise getting a Desert Eagle unless you're just a collector. Next would be revolvers. Pretty much all revolvers are the same. Mechanically, they just either they're single action or double action, which just means single action, pull back the hammer, fires off a round. Double action is you can pull the trigger and the hammer mechanically will engage every single time you pull the trigger. But they typically work exactly the same with how their valves are released. and firing BBs. Most of them, if not all of them, are 12 grams CO2. Issue with them is because of their short barrels, they typically run between 380 and 400 FPS because they're also a non-blowback gun, so they conserve more gas, so you get more shots, but that FPS prevents you from going indoors. Luckily, Elite Force came out with their Elite Force revolver that shoots 330 to 350 depending on temperature. But yeah, that's really good news for those who really wanted a revolver, and it works really well. I'm actually excited for, there's like a old school single action revolver coming out that Airsoft GI posted that is Old West style. It's not called a Peacemaker, but it kind of looks like it. Just kinda. I mean, it's more nostalgia for me because I have way too many pistols. You can ask any of my teammates, they're like, why do you have so many pistols? I like having stuff. So, another one, Sig Sauer, and their 226. That's a good pistol. You can get that in a plethora of combinations because there's different models, but really it's just external looks as well as different lengths of barrel, internal barrel as well, which isn't, when it comes to gas pistols, there isn't much of a difference when it comes to length of the barrel, as in tightness, the tightness of the barrel, that whether or not it's 604 or 603 or 601. I can't really think of any other mainstream. Maybe the CZ75, that Russian pistol. That's really popular. A lot of people are liking that one. P09, that one's really popular, which I think is also just a shoot off of a CZ. So, that's it for pistol models. You can yell at me in the comments if I didn't mention your favorite pistol. But a couple topics here. If you had a choice, make sure you get a model that does have a double stack magazine. Volume of BBs is crucial when it comes to mags, because I run mid caps for my primary. So getting as high in quality of mags is essential for being successful on the battlefield in Airsoft. So try to go double stack. You can get 1911s with double stack. They don't have to be thick. They don't have to be. The 1911s don't have a thick double stack mag. It's a very thin profile. It's even if you actually have seen an actual single stack 1911 pistols magazine, it's slightly bigger than the Airsoft ones, so it's all good there. There's also plenty of mag pouches that you can get from a plethora of companies with a plethora of quality. You don't have to go high quality HSGI taco pouches. You can just go Condor if you want. The differences in CO2 versus green gas pistols. Remember that, well, firstly, green gas is very easy to get and it's cheaper, in my opinion. When it comes to CO2, you can go on Amazon and get bulk CO2 12 grams for a decent price. It all depends on what you're willing to spend on this hobby, really. Green gas in colder temperatures will shoot at a lower FPS than CO2, sometimes to the point where it doesn't function properly in the pistol because the mags get so cold so quickly that there's no expansion of gas properly. CO2 can run colder, so it typically will last a full mag more likely than a green gas mag. Problem with this is, like I said with the revolvers, with CO2, in warmer temperatures, CO2 will run hotter than green gas. So there's the potential for using a CO2 pistol in the winter, indoor, but once it starts warming up in the spring and summer, then you've just lost that pistol as a choice, because then you're running into a greater expansion of gas. So there's a plethora of holsters. You can get soft holders and hard holsters, and there's also different configurations on how you want them integrated into your kit. I personally go for a hard holster. I've used soft holsters before. They're good for reducing weight, but I've had one too many just fall apart on me. Wow, I took that out with my weekend. Maybe I should come to conserving the Ember. So, yeah, I'd go for a hard holster. You can go for a Chaos, you can go for Safariland, you could go for G-Code. But remember, you gotta, some of these things are expensive, so take the price into account. Make sure that you understand your priorities when it comes to being a hobby. Next up, outdoor versus indoor. Outdoor, I don't really advise getting a pistol for, because you're going to have a primary that's going to shoot relatively farther because you can have a higher FPS. So you can fine tune an outdoor rifle to the point you're not going to waste ammunition. But for milsim events, I do advise a pistol, because you'll run into moments where you have really close engagements and your rifle's just too big for getting around corners inside buildings. So I do approve of pistols for milsims. For indoor, I would say absolutely not. If you're running a primary that is a standard rifleman's loadout, and you're already pretty much limited to semi-auto only in pretty much every single indoor situation, so you're not going to really run out of ammo. What I do say is that if you want to run a pistol as your primary, just make sure you have the FPS requirements, and also make sure that you have enough mags to, perform on the field. So, and then finally, as the last topic of discussion, is upgrades. All the models I've mentioned have many upgrades that you can get from many different companies. I like to make a special note that you can use a 601 barrel in most, if not all, airsoft gas pistols. And I haven't really had problems with quality of BB getting out of those barrels as well. I would still advise using good quality BBs, not using cheap stuff like Crosman or TSD or any of those other cheapo brands, just because I've seen bad things come out of that stuff. And never use .12 gram BBs ever. So